Hello and welcome to part 14 of this Neytiri course. Today is the last time we will speak about infixes. Today we will speak about position 0, or also called the pre-first position. Here again the overview over all the infix parts. I highly recommend that you watch the first 3 parts before watching this one. In principle, you can understand the most important things from this part only after watching part 1. Because you should know what an infix is and where to put an infix in a verb. But for some later things in this video, we will also talk about stuff that we talked about, especially in part 2, because we will talk about modals a bit, we will talk about the participles a bit. So for that, it might be useful if you watch that part first. So today, we will talk about the causative, so to cause someone to do something, the reflexive, so to do something to oneself, and the combination of the two, so to cause oneself to do something. Here you see again the overview over all the infixes that exist. In the past 3 videos we have already covered all the other infixes from position 1 and 2, so only these 3 on the left are left for today: egg, ab, and ab-egg. Let's start with the reflexive ab. First of all, this one works only with transitive verbs, so you cannot use it with any intransitive verbs. Second of all, there are of course exceptions because it's a language. So there are certain C verbs that can be used with ab, but these are only these 5: win seppi, to hurry oneself; stu seppi, to close by itself, close on its own; piak seppi, to open oneself, open by itself or open on its own; ioe seppi, to adorn oneself; and leo seppi, to cover oneself. These are the only 5 intransitive verbs you can use ab with. They are also in the dictionary like this, so that's the way you can see that it's actually possible. For all other verbs, if they're intransitive, you cannot use ab with them. But let's look at how this actually works and what it does to a verb. So here you see some examples. First, a normal transitive sentence: I see you. Well, ngati ca. Note that we have here L and T ending, because I'm the one seeing, so I get the L ending, and you are the one being seen, so you get the T ending, ngati. If we now include the ab infix into the verb, then we get oe cpa, I see myself. You can directly note some differences between the English sentence and the Neytiri one. First of all, in English, we have the reflexive pronoun myself. So basically the sentence has the same structure as the first one, I see you versus I see myself. It's the same structure, but instead of having you as the object, we use myself. In Neytiri, it works a bit differently. We don't need this reflexive pronoun. We don't need to say something like well cpa weti. That would be wrong. Instead, we insert ab in the verb and then don't need the L ending on the oe anymore, because the ca, the transitive ca, became intransitive. So the ab already has the meaning of myself included. Another example. First, a normal transitive sentence. She washes the plates. Aiom yoti pol jur. Then the next sentence again with ab. She washes herself. Je pur po. If we want to say that something happens to each other, then we use fits up. We see each other. CPA fits up when. If we leave out the fits up, also if we just say CPA when, then it means we see ourselves. So I see myself and you see yourself. So the fits up is actually important. So like I already said, ab makes the verb intransitive. So we will notice that in all the sentences with the ab, there is no L ending anymore, because it's now an intransitive sentence. And like you probably learned before, L only occurs in transitive sentences when there's also a T ending. But what if I want to have the reflexive with intransitive verbs? For most of them, of course, it doesn't make any sense, because to sleep oneself, nah. But some verbs that are transitive in English, like for example to like something, to love someone, or to know someone, are actually intransitive in that way. So what do I do with them if I want to have a reflexive sentence with them? We can do that. Here are some examples. She knows him would be puero smon poan. That literally means to her, he is known. And if we want to now turn this into a reflexive sentence, we can use the pronoun snow. That refers back to the poe. Poe smon snoru. So she is known to herself, literally. The same can be done with the sentence I love you or something like that. So one example sentence is he loves me. Oe jaune luporu, literally I am beloved to him. We can now change this into po jaune lu snoru, which literally then means he is beloved to himself, so he loves himself. This also works with fits up, of course. One example sentence, we know each other. Moes mon moeru fits up. We two are known to the two of us, each other, literally. In this case, we can also leave out the moeru, so we can just say moes mon fits up. Next, let's talk about the causative eg. It means to cause or make someone do something, and it works with all verbs. So other than with ab, which only works with transitive verbs, eg can be used with all kinds of verbs. But the verb type decides which case endings are used. So the verb type is still important because the different verb types, transitive and intransitive, react differently to the causative eg. Also, with eg, transitive verbs are always treated as transitives, even if they're used in intransitive sentences. Maybe you remember from the lesson about LNT that I can use a transitive verb also intransitively. For example, oeyom, I eat. Then I don't have an L ending, so it completely behaves like an intransitive verb, as opposed to well mautiti yom, I eat the fruit. With eg, that doesn't matter. I always treat transitive verbs like transitive verbs, even if the sentence itself or the base sentence is intransitive. The action is intransitive. Let's look at some example sentences first with intransitive verbs. You sleep would be nga hahau. If I now want to say I cause you to sleep or make you sleep, then we get well ngati heikahau. So what you see here is the person who causes someone to do something, in this case I, gets the L ending, so oe changes into well. And the person who is caused to sleep or is made sleep gets the T ending, so nga changes into ngati. And of course the hahau gets the eg infix, so it becomes heikahau. So the intransitive verb hahau became transitive. Another example would be the branch breaks, kak wool. To break in natvi, so kak, is only used intransitively. If I now want to use it transitively, like in the English sentence, I break the branch, I have to use the eg infix. Kak well wulit. I cause the branch to break, or I make the branch break. And with that, we can do this transitive meaning of to break. Another example, I am angry, OSD. If I now want to say you anger me or you make me angry, literally you cause me to be angry, I again can just use the eg infix and LNT, weti ngal steki. So, like I already said, eg makes intransitive verbs transitive. So, now let's look at how eg interacts with transitive verbs. It's slightly different. Here are some example sentences. Let's go through them step by step. I hantejerig is a normal transitive sentence. Well, jerig geht taron. I get the L ending because I'm hunting. The jerig gets the T ending because it's the thing hunted. If I now insert eg into the sentence and say I make you hantejerig or I cause you to hantejerig, then the jerig still has the T ending because what is hunted? The jerig. So the direct object does not change. And again, like with the intransitive verbs, the person who causes someone to do something gets the L ending. So because I cause you to hunt, I get the L ending. That of course leaves open the question what to do with the person who is caused to do something. And there are two different solutions for this. You can either give them the ru ending, like in the first sentence there. Well, jerigit te karon ngaru. But you can also use the adposition fa, which means with or by the means of. Well, jerigit te karon ngafa or fa nga. In case you're wondering what the difference is between using the ru ending or fa, it's a very slight difference. You can use both always, but if you use fa, you kinda take the focus away a bit from the person being caused to do something. So it's more like I make the Yerik being hunted by you. So the you has less of a focus on it. The focus is more on me or the Yerik. But you can always use both of them. They're always correct. Let's look at another example. You read a book. Inan pukit ngal, a normal transitive sentence. If I now want to say something like, you caused the child to read a book, then, like before, you put the egg infix into the verb, or in this case before the verb, because of the strange infix positions of inan. Eikinan, evengur, pukit ngal, or again we can use fa. Eikinan, eveng fa, or fa eveng, pukit ngal. And one last example, like I said before, transitive verbs can usually also just be used intransitively. So I can say, nga inan, you read. But if we now say, you cause the child to read, so basically it's based on this intransitive idea that a child reads without a direct object, then we still use the pattern for the transitive verbs, even though it's based on an intransitive sentence. So we say, ngal eikinan evengur, or eveng fa or fa eveng, as opposed to ngal eikinan evengti, like we had before with the intransitive verbs. Here is another overview picture of all the case endings and how eik interacts with different types of verbs. This picture was made by Nauma Willem, by the way. That was all the base stuff about ab and eik. Now we will look at some special cases. I recommend that you first practice what you learned up to now and only come back to this part once you're sure you know how to use ab and eik with different types of verbs. But let's first take a look at ab and eik in combination with modals, because ab and eik can actually go into a second verb, into a modal construction. If you remember from 2 lessons ago, a modal construction is stuff like oe neo hivahau, I want to sleep. The neo in this case would be the modal verb. It influenced the second verb hivahau, and the second verb gets the eve infix. And when we talked about these constructions, we also learned that all the other infixes will always go into the modal verb. But ab and eik are actually exceptions. They can go into the second verb. This can be used whenever it makes sense. Here are 2 examples. Oe neo tpva, I want to see myself. Or oe neo ngaru bukit eikivinan, I want to make you to read the book. Note that here the oe doesn't have a l ending because of the modal verb construction. However, they cannot go into modal, so you cannot put ab and eik into a modal verb. Example where this would be needed would be something like, this music makes me want to dance, so nekeo causes me to want. And maybe the first instinct would be to say something like fepamtsiol ueti nekeo sriveo, but that's not possible. Instead, you can do it like I showed here. We can also use modals as normal verbs. I can say, well neo siuveti, I want food, a normal transitive sentence. And we can do the same with a futa subclause to put our verb in. So we get something like fepamtsiol, weru, nekeo, futa sreo, or futa sreveo, both are possible here. So the pamtsiol gets the L ending because it's the thing that causes us to do something. The futa builds a subclause with the T ending. So the thing that I want is in this subclause. The sreo, I want to dance, or it causes me to want to dance, it's our direct object. And the oe gets the ru ending because I'm caused to want something. And of course there is an eik infix in the neo now. Next, let's look at ab and eik in interaction with us and aun, because it's also possible, even though I told you before, no other infix with us and aun. But ab and eik are just special. So like I said, combinations with ab and eik and us and aun are possible. One exception is that ab is not possible with aun. If you think about it, it also doesn't make any sense, because aun can only go into transitive verbs. But any verb you put ab in automatically becomes intransitive, right? So we can't just not put the aun in there to turn it into the passive adjectives. That just doesn't make any sense. But we can combine all the others and it creates just an adjective in combination with the causing to or to oneself effect or itself. Here are some examples. Weltsea ioangit ayepusur. I see a self-washing animal. Here we have ab in combination with us. So ab, yepur, to wash oneself, and then with us, self-washing, made it into an adjective. Luweru biak sepusia sehena. I have a self-opening container. Room a zeikau noob. A dropped ball from zoop to fall. Errol a zeikuso. A healing plant. So let's look in detail at two of them again. First, the zeikau noob. Zoop means to fall. If we now insert the egg infix in there, it means to cause to fall. So for example, we could say room zoop, the ball falls. And if I now say well roomit zeikup, then I cause the ball to fall. So I drop the ball. Now we can put the aun in there, that was the passive adjective. So we get an adjective meaning dropped. So something that has been dropped. Like room a zeikau noob. A dropped ball. And the other one, the zeikuso, we start with zo, which is a verb meaning to be well, to work as intended. If we put the egg in there, then we get to cause to be well or to cause to work as intended, which is also a word for to heal something. If we now put the us in there, we get the adjective describing something that heals something, and then we get healing. So for example, Errol a zeikuso, a healing plant, literally a plant that causes to be well. Lastly, let's take a look at ab-bake. Like you probably can already see, that's the combination of the reflexive ab and the causative ake. The two of them together mean something like to cause oneself to do something. Unfortunately, we don't have that many official examples with that one. This one is actually an official example. Tsiek epeka mrko eu utral azolup. Here we have a very long verb because it has the epek infix, but it also has the am infix, so past. The base verb here is rko, to roll. So Jake caused himself to roll under the tree which fell, so Jake rolled under the fallen tree. Another example, oitskekeng sepegi. I caused myself to practice. One small thing about ab-bake, then we are almost done. I told you before that with ake, transitive verbs are always treated as transitive, no matter if the base sentence is transitive or intransitive. That is not that way for ab-bake. Let's look at it. First, a normal transitive sentence, wel taron jerikit, I hante jerik. If we insert ab-bake in there, the case endings stay the same. Well, te pekaron jerikit. I caused myself to hante jerik, as expected. If we now have an intransitive based sentence, for example, oetaron, I hunt, this happens. Oe te pekaron, I cause myself to hunt. No L ending here. Remember, if we had something with ake before, we would say something like ngal weru te pekaron, so we would treat it like a transitive verb even though it's used intransitively. With ab-bake, we always look at the base sentence. Is the base sentence intransitive or transitive? And there we get our case endings from. One last thing. I told you that we don't have that many official sentences with ab-bake. We have this beauty, bodepe giye verkeyup ninek, and of course I wanted to show it to you. Here you see an example of overusage of many infixes. Let's take it apart. The base verb here is terkup. We have the ab-bake infix in there, we have the ef infix in there, we have the a infix in there. Just as a reminder, ab-bake to cause oneself to do something. Ef, the subjunctive in the future, and the a, the speaker is happy about it. Po means he or she, and the neg was in a drinking way, because neg is to drink, and ne makes adverbs. So the official translation of this one is, I'm so jazzed that he may be about to drink himself to death. And with this beautiful sentence, I finished this lesson. I hope you learned something and this was helpful for you. Like always, if you have questions, you can ask in the comments or contact me on Discord. Hi, Yellow, I'm a Frappo.